market rate is probably, we're not sure what it is. When the market rate could be possibly about $3 a square foot, you're looking at, like I said, 1.5 million you're bringing in every year for additional revenue.
Okay, and then on our regular lease agreements, as it relates to the nonprofits, are they responsible for the upkeep maintenance currently, or is that a city responsibility?
I think you have certain, most of them there should be responsible. There's some special ones or unique ones where the city gets involved.
Okay, but currently it's basically no standardization.
Chairman, are we going to try to charge rent to all these facilities? Or are we going to weigh in what their value is?
What we're doing on special events, giving the council office the ability to choose whether they wanted to subsidize at all, because the reason we went to subsidy as opposed to waiving is that there were some legal issues as to fair treatment. Sure, that if there are programs that have a attachment or affiliation with the city, that they are dealt with differently than if somebody that was not. And so that's why when we deal with property and people buy it at a lower cost, if they are affiliated with the city in some relationship, they are dealt with differently.
Item number 2 is concerning asset management. Because of the EREP, we're losing probably 15 to 20% of our staff at asset management. And what we need to do in this particular study is to look at the particular services that we provide and put them in priority order and determine what we can do and what we cannot do, and determine if there are opportunities for outsourcing in some of those services that we cannot do.
Okay. How many properties does asset management manage?
I think we manage square footage-wise about 16 million square feet.
How many pieces of property?
I'm not sure. We have David Pascal from our AGM over asset management give you more details on that.
Yeah, I'm looking at some of my notes. It says 8,000 land parcels and potentially 1,000 structures. And also that you have jurisdiction over parcels numbering 2,200 that are council controlled.
That sounds correct.
So my point there, I wanted to bring that out because, again, ladies and gentlemen, we take it for granted. Obviously, we know we're a big city, 4 million people, etc. But when it comes to the asset management responsibilities of the city of Los Angeles, specifically GSD, General Services Department, it's a daunting task. It's a lot of responsibility. And with that responsibility comes a lot of men and women hours. It's a daunting task. It's a lot of responsibility. And with that responsibility comes a lot of men and women hours that need to be afforded toward those responsibilities. And as we cut this department, as we cut many other departments, it doesn't reduce the number of parcels that they have responsibility over. It doesn't reduce the work requirements that come inherent with each particular property, with each particular situation. So it's really important that we understand those things as we move forward as policymakers when we are cutting this department, and that this is not an argument to cut or not. All I'm saying is I think it's important for us to understand as a policy-making body what the magnitude of the situation is and how we may be hindering ourselves in the long run if we're not cognizant of how we're affecting this particular department. We need to identify as a landlord all of those responsibilities, but each tenant needs to either be responsible for some of those things consciously within a contract or not. And I believe that right now, too much of those pieces are loose ends that have not been tied up. And then also, when you own a property, you are a landlord, and with that title comes responsibilities and also legal and management expenses. And we need to be conscious as a council, as a policy-making body, how much of those burdens we're picking up for each one of these properties. It's a responsibility of us to understand that before we go ahead and allow somebody to have our space under certain conditions and responsibilities for another 5 or 10 years rolling forward. So we need to be conscious of all those realities before we make those decisions. And also, an additional thing that I think the report should have is the report should inform the council of industry standards of responsibility costs.
Literally hundreds of these kinds of lease agreements. How many are there? Do you
I think it's about 200.
200, okay. 200 lease agreements. It's sort of, there's no, and quite frankly, with the clout of the local city council member weighing in on each one of these deals, it makes it difficult to maintain a consistency with how these lease agreements are made. So I, for one, believe that we should provide space to local nonprofits that are giving more value than what we would be paying in market rate rent. The PALS program is a program. The